Shalom Aleichem. My name is Tony Pino, and today we are going to continue in our series concerning, is it law and grace, or is it law versus grace? Which is it? Today we're going to be looking at Romans chapter 14. Oftentimes people will take us to Romans chapter 14 when they try to prove that Shaul says we can now eat whatever we want. We no longer have to adhere to the food laws of Leviticus chapter 11. We now can do and eat whatever we want. And so, is that really what Shaul was saying? Let's find out. Amen. So, here we are in Romans chapter 14. Now, in the assemblies of Rome, here we have some issues that have arisen between the Jewish believers and the Gentile believers, and maybe even some of the Gentile believers that had converted to Judaism, proselytized to Judaism before knowing Yeshua. There's a mixture going on in this community, and there's some disputes. Part of the reason for the disputes is also prior to this letter, the Emperor Claudius had exiled the Jews for at least 5 years out of Rome. So the Roman assemblies ran their assemblies under only Gentile influence because the Jews were exiled for 5 years. After Claudius's death in 55 CE, they come back and they begin to have these disputes with the Jewish believers in Yeshua along with the Gentile believers in Yeshua. So Shaul has to write this letter to go ahead and give instructions on all the different disputes going on. And so we do have a food dispute, and let's see what it's all about. Amen. So in verse 1, Shaul says, "Now accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of disputes about opinions. One person has faith to eat anything, but the weak eats only vegetables. Don't let the one who eats disparage the one who does not eat, and don't let the one who does not eat the one who eats. Judge the one who eats. For God has accepted him. Who are you to judge another servant? Before his own master, he stands or falls. Yes, he stands, for the Lord is able to make him stand." So what we have going on here is, of course, Gentiles have been going to the market for the last several years, sticking to the food laws. They've been only buying clean meat, but it's not been done according to halakha. There were no Jewish butchers. They were all exiled. And even in the days when the Jewish butchers were around, many Jewish butchers would not sell to a Gentile. Because of halakha, oral law, and man's traditions, oftentimes Jews would not have anything to do with Gentiles. They just considered them defiled, and they didn't want that defilement to come in their establishment or their home. Just look at what Peter said to Cornelius when he came to his home. He said, "You know how we are not allowed to be here. I'm not really allowed to be in your house." Peter wasn't speaking according to Torah. He was speaking according to oral law, man-made tradition. So here, what we have is, of course, we have one group that's trying to maintain the Jewish oral laws about eating food, eating things from the clean list. Just like when Yeshua argued with the Parashim about washing your hands. It really wasn't about food, it was about washing your hands before you eat. And so there were many oral traditions of the Jewish people that were added to the food laws that are not in the Torah. The Gentiles here are just obeying the Torah. They are following the Torah laws of not eating what Yahweh says is not food, which is the pork and the shellfish and all of that. And they are eating from the clean list, but they're not following the oral traditions. So when it says, "Now accept the one who is weak in faith," the one weak in faith is the one who's entrenched in oral tradition. They don't understand because they've been so wrapped up in their oral tradition that you can eat the food. Amen. If it's from the clean list and then the blood's been drained, just because it hasn't followed your oral tradition doesn't make it unclean. Okay, it can still be rendered clean if it's been done correctly. And so you actually have weak faith to think that that's the only way you can eat the food. Okay, but not for the purpose of disputes about opinions, he says. One person has faith to eat anything. In other words, he eats from the clean list. He doesn't follow the oral laws. Okay, the weak eats only vegetables. Okay, if he doesn't know where it came from, if it's not been following the oral tradition, then he is only going to eat vegetables. He's not going to take a chance on that. And so, yes, the one who's wrapped up in a lot of halakha, oral law, he will only eat vegetables. So it says, don't let the one who eats disparage the one who does not eat. Okay, don't argue over this. You're both eating from the clean list, but one is following oral tradition and one is not. Okay, and don't let the one who does not eat judge the one who eats, for God has accepted him. Who are you to judge another man's servant? Okay, Yahweh will judge each one if they are following the food laws correctly. He will judge them. Just because one isn't adhering to all of the oral law and the other one is, doesn't make one servant better than the other. Okay, they're not violating the Torah. Paul is not going to teach you to violate the Torah. He's not going to go against the words of Yeshua in Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 19, where Yeshua says, not one jot or tittle of the law will pass away until all is fulfilled. Has all been fulfilled? Absolutely not. He's coming back a second time to fulfill all the verses that he has not fulfilled in the Torah and the prophets and the writings. So there's still much more for Yeshua to do when he returns. So yes, all of the Torah is still valid today. Amen. And then we also have Paul in Acts 25, verses 7 through 9. When he arrived, the Judeans who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, speaking of Paul, bringing against him many serious charges which they could not prove. They were bringing false charges against Paul, saying he was what? A Torah violator. Paul said in his defense, I have committed no offense against the Torah of the Jewish people, or against the temple, or against Caesar. See, what Paul violated oftentimes was their oral tradition, but he never violated the Torah. He did no offense against the Torah of the Jewish people. This means he would be teaching the Gentiles to keep the food laws. Otherwise, he would be creating an offense against the Torah of the Jewish people. Amen. So the Torah teaches there's one law for the Jew or the native and the foreigner. When it comes to the food laws, it is for both because they are holy, righteous, and good. It's for your benefit. It's a blessing to follow the Torah, not a curse. It's only a curse when you violate the Torah. Amen. So Paul is teaching them to uphold the Torah in Romans chapter 14. What he's not doing is saying that you have to follow the oral law, the traditions of men. If you want to, fine. Don't judge the one that's doing it, and don't judge the one that isn't doing it. As long as they're not violating Torah, leave them alone. Let Yahweh judge them. Amen. So again, now accept the one who is weak in faith. The one weak in faith is one entrenched in the oral tradition, but not for the purpose of disputes about opinions. One person has faith to eat anything, not follow the oral tradition. He's still sticking to what is called food, only on the clean list, right? But the weak eats only vegetables. Okay, he doesn't know where you got that food from. He doesn't know what you've done to that food, so he's only going to eat vegetables. He's entrenched in the oral tradition. Don't let the one who eats disparage the one who does not eat, and don't let the one who does not eat judge the one who eats, for God has accepted him. Who are you to judge another's servant? Before his own master he stands or falls. Yes, he shall stand, for the Lord is able to make him stand. Amen. This entire set of scriptures is about whether or not to follow the traditions of men. Paul will always uphold the Torah. Amen. And so is it law and grace, or is it law versus grace? It is law and grace. Amen. So next time together, we're going to go tackle the next few verses, 5 through 7, about whether or not Paul has gotten rid of Sabbath. Do we really need to keep the Sabbath anymore, or is every day the same? We'll find that out next time. So until we meet again, everyone, shalom.